Hello, Sam here, editor of Oracle Time, and today I'm talking to you from this unseasonably hot studio to ask you a question. What is a microbrand? It's a term that's been bandied around by horological pundits aplenty, ourselves included, but one that's proved relatively difficult to pin down. It means a bit more than just a small watchmaker, it means a lot more than simply being crowdfunded. So we have taken it upon ourselves to pin down exactly the traits a brand needs in order to be considered a micro. Scale is obviously the simplest way to think of a microbrand. It is, after all, in the name. And because of the entrepreneurial way most microbrands are set up and run, there tend to not be all that many people behind the scenes. Take, for example, British brand Schofield. Schofield as a brand is almost entirely driven by principal keeper Giles Ellis, a human hurricane of watch design who is honestly exhausting. But it has led to Schofield eking out a niche as a very unique looking brand with the kind of obsessive design touches that are obviously a labour of love. Case in point, the Japanese edition Bronze Beater B4 we have here. The entire concept of the beater is to be bashed about and survive, like a well-loved defender after a decade in the countryside. Detailed to the point of obsessive, with plenty of Japanese touches, including a beautifully engraved cherry blossom caseback, it is really one man's vision of what a tool watch can be. Smaller companies mean smaller production capacity and therefore limited numbers throughout the year. Many a microbrand is at the sell watches to make watches stage, and even more established ones sell pieces in batches. On the one hand, it means that you can be a little frustrated when you're trying to get the watch you want. At the other, it allows brands to not only offer some inventive, small-run limited editions, but offer an attention to detail that larger brands with mass-produced watches simply cannot match. If, for example, you wanted a watch from Scottish brand anOrdain, you could be waiting up to 10 weeks. That's entirely due to their enamel dials, which, between the laborious process they take to make and the inevitable slew of rejects that come from the process, it's little surprise that they can't make up for demand, especially when they look this stunning. The Post Office Red version of their seminal Model 1 is arguably the watch that put them on the map. The vitreous enamel dial takes 12 days to produce, and anOrdain are one of the few brands outside of Switzerland and Japan that are able to create it. The effort is well worthwhile though, because as you can see, it offers an incredible depth to the red, and in fact to the other colours in their range, including the astoundingly lovely green fume. Paired with a quirky dial layout, paired back case, and a solid ETA movement, there's a lot to love, if you can wait those 10 weeks. Running a fine watch manufacturer takes immense expertise. It also requires a place to house the production line, and a lot of money to start it up, which, needless to say, is out of the bounds of most startup watch brands. Which is why outsourced production is an integral part of what makes a microbrand. That's especially true of movements. In-house movements take years and millions of pounds to develop. On the other hand, Sellita, ETA, Soprod, and Miyota all offer incredibly solid movements for fractions of the cost you would expect. Therefore, they make an incredibly attractive way for microbrands to get their designs off the ground. There are still, of course, a few microbrands that offer higher end movements, including the Zelos Mirage 2 with its La Joux Perret number. But on the whole, it's the same story across the board, that is, third-party movements. That's not necessarily a bad thing, of course. Norway, for example, doesn't have a particularly massive watchmaking infrastructure. And without outsourced production, Norwegian brand Doren would have been at a loss. Instead, by going to third-party manufacturers across the world, they offer their own distinctive Art Nouveau designs with incredibly affordable prices. Take, for example, the Runde, which pairs a beautiful golden dial, dubbed the Tiger's Eye, with an otherwise pared back case and a very casual summer vibe. In fact, it is a perfect watch for this weather. The watch will set you back just £248, which makes it a very, very tempting impulse buy if you need a little extra colour in your summer outfit. It still has a Swiss movement, and it is a well-made watch, just don't expect made in Norway on the dial anytime soon. It's rare that you ever find a Microbrand in a bricks and mortar store. It happens, on occasion, but very rarely, and the reasons are pretty obvious. In order to maintain, or run, or even display in a physical store, it takes a lot of money. It also then takes a marketing push, and the costs add up considerably. Most of the time, brands will stick to the formula, including the likes of Baltic, who just made a huge splash at the Only Watch charity auction by being arguably the first microbrand ever to participate, and given the likes of Pateka there, that's an incredibly big stride. They also happen to be one of the few microbrands that could arguably justify a physical store. Not that I'm saying they should, in fact, I am more than happy that they haven't, as it makes things like the Aquascaf GMT, including the blue and green bezeled version we have here, all the more affordable. In fact, despite its diving heritage good looks and a solid stop rod movement inside, this will set you back still under £1,000. In short, what's not to love? In general, a microbrand exists because a person or persons has seen a hole in the market for their particular take on watchmaking. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're very, very wrong, but either way it breeds the kind of quirkiness and creativity that traditional watchmakers simply can't live up to. The watermelon watch, for example, courtesy of Studio Underd0g, that's Underdog with a 0, is the kind of colourway that no sane watchmaker would attempt. It's a mouth-watering mix of pink and green that really on paper shouldn't work, but in reality is an absolute stunner. Even the bicompact layout is off-kilter, with 2 different size sub-counters in 2 different colours. It's the kind of playful design that I love seeing, at any price point, let alone for under £400. Needless to say, this may well be my next summer purchase. For us, this is the big one, the aspect that really ties together everything that makes a microbrand. As you may have gathered from the watches so far, value is at the core of what most of these brands offer. Whether that's a design you normally can't get at that price point, or simply a solidly made alternative to a bigger brand, many a microbrand lives and dies on the value that they offer. Such is the case with Boldr Supply, purveyors of serious and seriously accessible tool watches. While the field watch style of the Ventura is a bit more up my alley, there's no denying that the Odyssey, here in bronze, is a fantastic value piece, and not just because of the sheer weight of bronze. The indexes are lumicast, which essentially just means 3-dimensional lume, and the case design is up there with the most overcompensating divers on the market. We have it here in a serpentine green, which incidentally makes it hit the bullseye for the current bronze and green zeitgeist in watchmaking. And it has all the specs of a serious diver, including 500 meters water resistance. Given that a lot of the time you'll pay a lot more for a lot less watch, there's no denying that Boldr Supply have outdone themselves with this piece. Best of all, the watch will set you back just $600. In reality, there isn't a concrete definition of microbrand. It's a nebulous term that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And there's the fact that quintessential microbrands can find themselves shifting up to the big leagues if they do well, which, most of them want to. However, if they do offer incredible value, creative designs, they outsource most of their production, and they keep things small scale, both in terms of staff and the number of watches they produce, then you can safely call them a microbrand. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to let us know in the comments below all about your favourite microbrand, and remember to like and subscribe for all the latest watch news and reviews from us here at Oracle Time.